Hi, folks. Welcome to Great Call, risk-taking and decision-making in this new uncertain world with myself, Caspar Berry. Hopefully you're about to spend an hour with me, and I hold your attention for that time. During the course of this, I'm going to look at a casino. I'm going to look at gambling as a leisure pastime. I'm going to look at why we shouldn't do it. I'm going to look at the lessons that we can take from it, apply to our daily lives, and hopefully make better decisions as a result. During the course of this, I'm going to play some slots. I'm going to play some roulette. I'm going to play some blackjack before finishing up playing some poker. And so during the course of all of that, if you'd like to type whatever questions you have in the chat box or the Q&A box, I'll do my best to answer them as we go through. All right, so we've got loads to get through. As you've probably already gathered from the material that you've read, the kind of underlying theme to today is about making decisions in a world of uncertainty. And I've been doing this job now for about 18 years. So when I started in 2003, people really didn't understand why I was talking about uncertainty. I mean, honestly, the majority of people in the room in 2003 really sort of thought uncertainty didn't apply to them. Well, obviously, those days are long gone after the last, 15 months of our lives. 15 years of our lives, really, ever since the financial crisis of 2007, 8, and 9. That was when people really started sort of taking it seriously and understanding that it played a part in their lives. But I would argue that uncertainty is always there. It's always with us. It's not just about national crises. Whenever we plan our week, things are going to happen. They're going to disrupt our plans. Whenever we trust someone, which we have to do every day, we don't know who's telling the truth and who's going to deliver on time and on budget. Whenever we tell stories, they're only exciting because we don't know exactly what's going to happen in the end. And whenever we watch sport, the thrill is that anything can happen. And I say watch sport, by the way, because watching sport is dangerous. But let me tell you, it is not half as dangerous as actually playing sport. And I'm talking about mainstream stuff here, not like extreme sports. I'm talking about Olympic things they're giving out medals for right now. I bet we've got some skiers here in this audience, haven't we? Don't get me started on skiing. Long before you get to the slopes, terrible things, embarrassing things can happen, ladies and gentlemen. No, I do not want that in my life. And that is why I decided to take my risks in the quiet comfort of the poker room. And when we're playing poker, we are definitely taking risks, we'll see. But I want to argue that if we're doing it properly, we're not gambling. And I know that might make me sound like I'm in a little bit of denial, and I might have to convince people during the course of the rest of this hour. So let's just calibrate our terms. When we do this, we're definitely gambling, all right? What do I mean by that? We're actually placing a series of investments. We call them bets, but they're investments. They're resource allocations under uncertainty, which can win on any given turn of the card or spin of the wheel, but which will, in the long run, lose, okay? In the long run, they'll lose. Gamblers lose. Why? Because they're playing against the house, and the house has set up those games in such a way that you will lose, and that's only fair. They've got a lot of real estate to pay for. But that makes poker, which we'll come to at the end of this hour, different in kind to everything else that happens in the casino. Why? Because when we play poker, we are not playing against the house. You are never going to be banned from a casino for winning $1 million in the poker room, because you didn't win it from them. You won it from, or you lost it to, the other players around the table, okay? Now, the house does make money, all right? But it makes the least amount of money per square foot of any part of the casino. It just takes a very small proportion of every pot, and it drops it in the chute you can see there in the bottom left-hand corner of that photo. So actually, casinos don't really like it. Now, internet poker, totally different, isn't it? Because you don't have dealers' wages to pay for, you haven't got any rent to pay for, and the internet has totally changed the game in the last 15 years or so. That's a poker game 20 years ago in the Riviera. It's bored, white, quite old men, mainly. Fast forward to today, we've got much more diversity in the game. About 30% of the players are women. And everyone's getting younger and younger, which I do have mixed feelings about, I've got to be honest with you. How long before we see something of that nature, all right? We're not there yet, thank God. Now, during the course of today, I'm going to encourage you to ask some questions, but I'm going to start this session by just putting forward the two questions that I get asked most often, which are, why did I do all this in the first place? Why did I go and become a professional poker player? And why did I stop? So let's start off with the first one, why did I do it? Bit of history on me. I'm 48 years old. I started off my working life 32 years ago now. in a BBC British children's drama called Biker Grove. We will have some people from Britain, I'm sure, in the viewing audience today, and they will know that this program is not famous for launching me. That is me 32 years ago there in my black leather jacket, played the part of Gil, the bad boy of the Grove. It is famous for launching these two into British culture, because these two are now the two most famous people in Britain. All right, Ant and Dec, you might have heard of them. There they are a few years ago, winning another in a series of awards. That's them with Simon Cowell and a BAFTA, a British Oscar, basically. And that's me, by contrast, on Sky Channel 846. Now, you may not live in Britain, but you know that that's not getting the same figures as ITV prime time. It got better. My life got better, thank goodness. I went on to be the poker advisor on the old Bond movie Casino Royale. But if you go back 32 years, this 16-year-old boy, he doesn't know any of that. He doesn't know what the future holds. It's literally an uncertain place for him. He doesn't know that he's going to go to Cambridge to study economics. He doesn't know that a screenplay that he writes when he's 20 is going to be made by Columbia TriStar and another one by Film 4. He doesn't know that he's going to start going to Las Vegas every couple of months or so with his buddy, because he's spending a lot of time in Los Angeles. And mainly to play blackjack, by the way, at that point in time, mainly to gamble. And I loved doing it. And we lost money in the long run, but we were buying fun. That's really the big message from this presentation with regards to the rest of the casino, with regards to gambling. You're buying fun, so enjoy it, or please, please, please don't do it. And then one day in the summer of 1999, it was actually my buddy who ventured down into the poker room. Now, that's not a photo of the actual game that we played in. It's very hard to take photos in a casino. You're not allowed to. People don't like it. But it's the kind of, it captures the vibe, right? Because there's beer on the table and people are laughing and it's quite friendly. But it was an amazing experience for us. I'd never played poker before. Well, that's not true. I played, you know, at the age of 10 around the kitchen table with my dad, but this was my first real money competitive game. And I talk a lot in some of my presentations about the butterfly effect, the idea that a tiny thing can have huge impacts in your life. And for me, this butterfly was this guy who was sitting next to me for a couple of hours of the 40 hours that we played. And I've never met him before. I'm never going to meet him again. I don't think. I wouldn't know if I did. But he explained poker to me using maths that I understood because I'd studied economics at university, and in a way that I'm going to share with you today. And I realized from what he was saying that poker was a game, it was fun, but it also offered the possibility of making a profit. And like I say, we played for nearly 42 hours, actually, nearly missed our plane home. And when I got home, I just became fascinated by poker. Now, this was long before it was sexy, long before the WPT, long before poker was on the internet. And there were probably about 100 books in existence on poker. So I read 30 of them in the next few months. And, you know, I was toying with the idea of going out to be a professional poker player, but I was thinking, it's kind of a crazy thing to do, isn't it? And then New Year's Eve, 1999, well, it was quite a special day, wasn't it? Obviously, the millennium. And if you're 48 like me, you knew from being quite a young age that the millennium was out there. You knew you were going to be, you know, 27 years old, and you had a vision of what your life was going to be like at that point. And if you're anything like me, you thought, you know, I'll have my own yacht, my own private island. I might see a new year in several different time zones and on my own Learjet. But that was not how New Year looked for me. It was actually standing on the banks of the Thames, shivering with cold, with 5 million people watching a free fireworks display. And in Britain, we had this fireworks display, which was there was going to be something called the River of Fire. Right, and the River of Fire was this huge, like, flame, 100 feet high, and it was going to go down the Thames. And well, you can see the River of Fire in that photo. That is the River of Fire. And me and 5 million other people just thought this is just awful, and it really impacted me quite a lot. I really honestly thought, like, you know, well, my life is definitely going in the wrong direction at this point. So maybe I need to take a risk, right? Maybe I need to do something different. Now, if you're happy with your life, I don't think you need to take a risk. If you're happy with your business, you shouldn't upset the apple cart. But if you want better returns by whatever metric, maybe money and profit, maybe satisfaction and utility, as an economist would say, then you need to take a risk. And I thought, okay, I need to do something. I need to make a change. And so on the 5th of January, literally, the year 2000, I flew to Las Vegas with my life savings in my pocket to become a professional poker player. Which sounds exciting, doesn't it? But let me just tell you of that notion. First of all, it wasn't that Las Vegas that I went to on the 5th of January. It was that Las Vegas. It was a very rainy January. It wasn't a summer holiday. And it wasn't even that Las Vegas that I went to. It was that Las Vegas, which you might have been to. It's only a couple of miles away, but it is a very different Las Vegas. I mean, these are all the big hotels, the Bellagio, Paris, etc. What have we got here? We've got the Frontier, built in the 40s, now demolished. We've got the Riviera and the Stardust, built in the 50s, both now demolished. The Circus, built in the 60s, still going, but should be demolished. And my hotel, my main hotel of choice was the Riviera, but I stayed in all of them. And the reason I stayed in those hotels was because they were cheap, and they were incredibly cheap because they gave us what's called a poker player's room rate, all right, which means as long as you played a certain number of hours per day, then you got a room for about $20, $25 a day. So let's go into that poker room. We looked at it earlier on. This is the Riviera poker room. This is where I first learned to play poker. What have we got here? We've got the poker table going on. We've got an empty table at the back there. That's why they give you the poker player's room rate, because if no one's playing poker, the house isn't making money. And then we've got a couple of people watching the game there. They're called railbirds, and you can do that, by the way, if you've never played poker before. You can stand at the rail behind the rope. You can watch the game, and no one has any problem with that. But it's a pretty sad place, isn't it? Right? I mean, you go to Las Vegas to be a professional poker player, you end up sitting in that room for about 12, 14 hours a day. You end up eating in that Panda Express, in the Riviera food court, as it was. And least glamorously of all, you end up clocking in and out because they need to know that you've done your 5 or 6 hours a day. So you go to Las Vegas to be a professional poker player and stick it to the man, and you end up literally clocking in and out. So after 6 months of doing this, I thought, okay, I need to move up in levels, right? Because apart from anything else, playing these small games, you could only make about $400 a week. That was about the max. That's what I was making at that point. So I was good. I was beating the game, but you know, it's not a great living. So the first thing I need to do is I need to change where I live, because I need to get out of this, got to play in this tiny game for 6 hours a day. So I looked around Vegas and I found this place, the Budget Suites. It looks pretty special, doesn't it? The Budget Suites. These are the publicity photos. It's got a pool, it's got tennis courts. This was the reality of the Budget Suites. It was a terrifying place. There was often a chopper overhead. Las Vegas has the highest number of convicts on the run of any part of America, and as far as I can make out, most of them were staying in this Budget Suites. So it's pretty terrifying, but it allowed me to move up in levels. All right, and that's the most important thing. And the level that I moved up to was the Mirage poker room. Now the Bellagio is bigger and sort of more special, but there was a reason I moved to the Mirage, as I'll share with you. Quick tour of this photo. This is the front desk where you go and say, I want to play poker, please. These are the low limit games, which are the same as I was playing the Riviera, which I would play for about 2 weeks just to feel comfortable in the room, because the way that you feel, literally physically, psychologically, very important when you're playing poker. This is the cage, right? This is where the money's kept and all the chips are kept. And this is why I played in the Mirage, because they gave me my own strong box, right, behind the counter, which is A, pretty cool, and B, practical, because it means I didn't have to go back every night with thousands of dollars to the Budget Suites. And then at the back here, back right, is the high limit games, which is where eventually I progressed to. And initially you dip down, right, for a while, because you're playing with much better players and the game actually changes. But after a while, I started beating this game. And after about a year and a half, I was making about $100,000 a year. Now, big swings in that. You could, you know, win 10,000 or lose 10,000 in a week, but in the long run, that's what you were making. So at this point, I was a professional poker player. I wasn't, you know, in the top 200 in the world, but I was beating the game in the Mirage, and that was, I felt good. And the accommodation gets better, and the standard of the Chinese gets better, but you're missing something, you know, after a while, everything becomes boring, doesn't it? And so you want to step up again. And the step up for me at that point was to play in the World Series, right? In the summer of 2002, I felt ready to play in the World Series against the 200-300 best players in the world. Except the World Series didn't look like that, right? In 2002, no. This is before internet poker, before SPN. This is what the World Series looked like. It was 200 very old, very white men who've been playing poker for like 50 years, literally. and I played in 3 tournaments, and I busted out of 2 of them, but that's fine. You know, I know I'm taking a step up. You know, again, I would expect a dip. And in the 3rd one, 1500 limit hold'em, I'm sorry, no limit hold'em. I'm playing, and after a period of time, I'm the chip leader in the room. Okay, so I'm playing with the best players in the world. I'm the chip leader in the room, which is an incredible feeling. And I look down and I see a pair of kings. Now, if you know I played poker, we'll talk about it a bit later on. Great hand, 2nd best starting hand, 1st best, obviously, pair of aces. But you're going to get this hand every 10 hours. You're going to get kings or aces once every 5 hours, right? So you've waited for it. You're going to raise it up. That's what you should do. You've got a good hand. You should raise it up. You should thin the field. You should get 1, maybe 2 callers. And the flop comes down for Jack-5. Not a brilliant flop, not a terrible flop by any means. We've got what we call an overpair to the board. Our kings are bigger than the jack. So even if he's got a jack, right, we're beating a pair of jacks. We've also got 4 clubs. Okay, so we're pretty confident. But there's lots of possibilities out there. Like if he's got 2 clubs, he's got a flush at this point. All right, but we're going to bet. Okay, and he's going to call. And then the turn card is going to come the queen. We're still over pair to these cards. All right, he could still have a flush. He could also, by the way, have at this point jack, queen to make 2 pairs. We just don't know, right? Poker's a game of unknown facts, if you like, which we're trying to assess using probabilities. But we bet, and he calls. And then the last card is the ace. And this is the nightmare card, okay? Because not only is it the card that people hold, right? People play ace something or other. It's also the only card that's now beating us, right? So if he's got an ace in his hand, he's now got a pair of aces. So we bet, all right, because you should bet, right, for information. And now he raises. And he makes a big raise. And I know what I should do in this situation, ladies and gentlemen. I should fold. But I was the chip leader, and half of my chips have gone into this pot, and I can't bear to go back into the pack. I can't bear that. And I could still be winning this. He could still be bluffing. And so I call. And he turns over not 1, but 2 aces, which gives him 3 aces. And that knocks my pair of kings into a cocked hat. That is the last hand of poker that I played in Las Vegas as a professional poker player. So why did I stop? I want to try and illustrate that and explain that by going through some different games in the casino. So I'm going to say something at this point. I've never done this session before in this form. I've done it in slightly different form, but because we're online here, I'm actually going to start to play some of these games. So again, while I'm playing those games, if you have any questions at all, then do feel free to stick them in the chat box. But let's go into a casino, all right, and see where we can find the answer to my decision to stop playing poker. First of all, the slot machines. So these are the slot machines. They take the most amount of money per square foot in a Las Vegas casino because there's no dealers to pay for. There's no human element, and also because the games go quickly, right? So whilst a hand of blackjack might take 3, 4, 5 minutes, a spin of a wheel on a slot machine just takes 20 seconds. In Macau, in Asia, they're not really interested in them. They don't play them. It's not a part of Asian culture. And even in the West, some people absolutely hate them. And I can totally see why, but in a way it's kind of a shame because I tell you what I love about slot machines is they're honest, right? Like some people think that they beat roulette, some people think that they beat blackjack, but no one can tell you that you beat the slot machines, all right? You might have got lucky, but you don't have a system to beat the slot machines. Look at this sign. It says 97.4%. Underneath that, it says payback, right? What this slot machine is telling you, this one online, telling you exactly the same thing. It's telling you, it's saying, I'm going to take your money. I'm going to give you back 97.4% of what you put in the long run. In the long run, I'm going to take your money. You can't get much more honest than that. So let's go into an online site. Hopefully you can see that in front of you there. And let's play a slot machine. I'm sure most of you have done this, but we're just going to hit the spin wheel and see what comes. And this is the new kinds of slot machines. It points out how and where you've won. So we're betting 140 per spin at the moment. We just won 40 there. So we made a loss on that spin, even though we seem to make some money. Let's have a look here. We won nothing. We lost 140. Okay, we've got some sort of bonus going on. I'm going to do it one more time. They're going to spin around. And oh, we got a little win there, got a little win of 60, but again, we still lost overall on that spin. And if you've never played slot machines before, you might be saying, well, why are you doing this? Why would anyone do this? What are you getting out of it? Oh, we've got a bit of win there, win of 100, 5 of a kind. Is that all? Oh, we did, we won 500. So that's one of the reasons why you play slot machines. Look, it's going mental. I don't understand it, by the way. I'm not an expert in this particular slot machine. We won 548. What happened at that point? Even though it wasn't real money, do you know what? A small part of me got quite excited. I thought, oh my God, I'm winning. It's not real money, but it released something into my brain called dopamine. Now, again, I've been doing this job 18 years. 18 years ago, no one knew what dopamine was. You probably do now, because we're talking a lot more about decision-making ever since Malcolm Gladwell's Blink in 2005. The idea that there is a mechanism that makes decisions is much more a part of the daily lexicon. And dopamine is obviously a hormonal reward for doing all sorts of things, for eating fats, because there were few fats out on the plains 500,000 years ago when this machine was being built, for having sex, because that continues the gene line, and for taking risk. Taking risk is rewarded with hits of dopamine. And so we get that excitement when we're playing the slot machines. It also has the advantage for some people, some psychologies, of being quite relaxing, right? Some people spend their lives making decisions. They might not be even consequential decisions, but decision-making is tiring. In his seminal book, Thinking Fast, Thinking Slow, Nobel Prize-winning psychologist, economist Daniel Kahneman talks about glucose depletion. Whenever we're making decisions, we're depleting glucose from our brain. That's why a day of decision-making can be quite tiring. And when you're playing slot machines, you don't really have to make decisions. You just have to decide whether or not to press that spin button, okay? So we've got the relaxation and we've got the dopamine rush, and those two things come together in slots. And they create a game which, you know what, I didn't have a lot of time for until quite recently. The one thing I will say recently is these slot machines are like, they're just machines for eliciting dopamine. And that is not a good thing, all right? Because as we've already seen, when we play slot machines in the long run, we're making a loss. So this dopamine is actually encouraging us to make bad decisions. Okay, let's go to a second game. We're going to play roulette. Again, I'm sure many of you will have played it, but let's see what we can take and learn from roulette. What's the aim of roulette? It's quite simply to predict what is going to happen during the spin of a wheel. And of course, we can't predict it, right? There's no way of knowing what's going to happen, but we can bet on a number here. We can bet on the outside reds. I can bet on these 6 numbers here. I can bet on these 4 numbers there. And I can say, I think it's going to come at these first 12 numbers. Okay, so those are my bets. I've scattered them around the board. I'm going to click in this online wheel, telling it I'm ready. And now this is where the dopamine is actually released, because it's the anticipation of what might come. Might I be a winner at this point? And unfortunately, it's not. It's black 31. I've literally lost all of those bets. I was doing this exact session 2 days ago. I always bet red 5. It's my number. There's no strategy there. It's just I'm a Star Wars fan, and Luke Skywalker is in number red 5, and it hit. And I was so excited, even though, again, it's not real money. Can you make money playing roulette? No, you can't. And the interesting thing about roulette is it doesn't matter whether you've been playing for 5 seconds or 50 years, you are literally exactly the same at it. There is no such thing as a good bet in roulette or a bad bet in roulette. The house edge at roulette is 2.7% in a single 0 wheel, which is the one that we're playing here. You can see 1 green 0 going around there, and 5.4% with an American double 0 wheel. And that edge is unbeatable. Lots of people think that they have systems to beat it. There's one system that says if you quit when you're $400 or $4,000 up, and whenever you're $200 or $2,000 down, then you're beating the house, because obviously you're stopping when you're more up than when you're more down. But look, the wheel doesn't know that you've gone home and had a shower and a shave. All it knows is that it's taking 2.7 or 5.4% of every dollar you put down on it. Let me illustrate that mathematically now. Now, before I do this little section, you might hate maths, all right? And that's absolutely fine. You do not have to understand or enjoy the maths that I'm going to show you here, but I'm going to show you it because it illustrates why roulette is a losing game, okay? And it starts to introduce this idea of risk and reward calculation, the origin of the phrase, the calculated risk. which I think is interesting because we bandy that phrase about quite a lot. We talk about, you know, come on, folks, let's say some good calculated risks here. We don't want any gambles. But what does that actually mean? Well, this illustrates that. So let's imagine, like me, you're going to place your hard-earned money on red. Okay, and what does that mean? There are 18 red squares that are going to win it for you in that situation. There are 18 black squares that are going to lose it for you. And have a look at the slide on screen there. There is one green 0 that is also going to lose it for you, right? And what that means is you don't have a 50-50% chance, okay? You've got a 48.65% chance of winning. When you win, you're going to get an even money return on your money. Think about that for a moment. Put your money in the stock market for 12 months, all right, well invested, and you'll probably make 10% return. Put it on a roulette wheel for 30 seconds, and you're going to make 100% return. That's what releases the dopamine. And here's why that is troubling, because 48.65% of the time you're going to win $1. And what we do when we're calculating risk is multiply the probability by the amount to give us a long-term upside of 0.4865. For every dollar you invest in your red number there, 51.35% of the time you're going to lose that dollar. And that gives you a long-term downside of minus 0.5135. And what we're going to do then is add up those two upsides and downsides to give us an overall expectation of $0.027. Divided by $1 gives us a return on our investment of minus 2.7%. That's the edge. And it doesn't matter how you put it on the table. It doesn't matter when you stop and come back. It's inexorable. It's inevitable. It's like Thanos. Just made that up. And here's the interesting thing. Let's imagine that I'm going to play a different strategy. I'm going to play red number 5 at this point, or any number on the board, where it gives me a 2.7% chance of success. But when I'm successful, it gives me a massive 35-to-1 return, or 3,500%. What does that mean? 2.7% of the time, I'm going to win $35, an upside of 0.946. 7.3% of the time, I'm going to lose that dollar, a downside of minus 0.973, thus creating exactly the same overall expectation, $0.027, a house edge of 2.7%. So if you've got a friend who tells you they've got a system that wins in roulette, they might even be telling you the truth. Have a look at this graph. It shows 4 simulations, so 4 sessions at roulette over the course of a maximum of 4,000 spins there. 3 out of those 4 people, right, are all in profit for a period of time. It's only poor old orange who goes literally from 100 all the way down to 0 in a matter of 1,000 spins, right? Blue is up, red is up, green is up, even after 1,500 spins. That's about 75 hours of playing roulette, right? Imagine you go down to the casino and you play, you know, 3 or 4 hours. That's several days after which you may still be up playing roulette. You think your system works, but trust me, they all go broke in the end. And just for the people out there who are thinking about the martingale system, which is a system of doubling your bet every time you lose, these are the graphs that demonstrate that. Okay, 2 things to note. Number 1, the graphs do look very different, all right? But number 2, they all go broke in the end because the wheel doesn't care. It doesn't matter what system you're using. It's a concept called gambler's ruin. But I want to say one more thing about roulette before we move on. All of this only works in favor of the house because whenever the 0 hits, the house wins. Have a think about this for a moment. If you won when the 0 hit, roulette would no longer be a gamble. It would be a way of earning money. Take all your dollars down there and keep on playing roulette because you would be making a return on your investment of 2.7 or 5.4%. And you should keep on playing until you've got more money than you know what to do with, or until something else would happen first. You got bored. Because actually, you know, people who think, you know, playing poker or playing blackjack or playing roulette for a living is exciting, trust me, they're all quite boring games. After a while, you definitely do it for the money. So that's roulette. And let's take stock of what we thought about so far. So we've got the relaxing nature of gambling. We've got the importance of the dopamine hit, which can encourage us to make bad decisions. We've got the importance of edge, which in every game in the casino is in the house's favor. And we've also got the importance of what's illustrated in this particular slide, which is variance. It's those two things, edge and variance, that make gambling possible for the house. The edge means the house wins in the long run, but the variance means that the line is jaggedy and the punter can win over a period of time. And that's really important, because if there was no variance, then no punters would come back, because they'd always lose money. Okay, right, let's go to our next game, and I'm sure many of you can guess what that is as we leave the roulette table and play a little bit of blackjack. Now, this was my favorite game in the casino. I'm sure, again, many of you have played blackjack. For me, quite simply, I preferred it to roulette because I found it more social, all right? You were sitting down, you were in a group of people. It was like a bar, but you were all united by the fact that you were all trying to win money off the dealer, and therefore I always found conversation much more lubricated. And what are we trying to do? We're trying to get closer to 21 than the dealer does, but without going bust, all right, without going over. So we've got two cards here. First of all, they add up to 18. The dealer's showing a 10. We'll see why that's important later on. But look, we're not going to improve on 18. We might do, but if you did this 10,000 times, what would happen? You'd go bust a lot. All right, so let's just stand, let's not take a card. Dealer turns up 20, not a big surprise, but nothing we can do about that. We lose our money. All right, let's play again. We're going to get about $175,000. We're going to get two cards, and this time we've got a 5 and a 6. All right, we've got 11. Okay, now this is a great situation, because one way to play roulette, I'm going to flesh this out in a moment, is to imagine that the next card is a 10. Now, it's not definitely going to be a 10, all right? But a 9 is nearly a 10 is a 10, a jack is a 10, a queen is a 10, a king is a 10, and an ace is an 11 or 1, all right? So if we imagine the next card is going to be a 10, then we're not going to be too disappointed most of the time. And if the next card is a 10 in this situation, we get 21, all right? And so this affords us an opportunity to put more money in this situation, because we're in a good place, right? And in blackjack, we're always betting that we're going to beat the house. And now it's given us a situation where we can up that bet, all right, raise the stakes. And so we're going to do what's called doubling down, all right? So we get one card in that situation. And I'm not going to lie to you, ladies and gentlemen, it hasn't gone well, all right? We've got 13, the dealer ends up with 19, and we lose. Now, interesting question. Did I do the wrong thing there? Well, if you judge it by outcome, yes. But if you judge it by, did I do the right thing based on what I knew at the time, the outcome, then it was the right thing to do. Okay, and here's what I want to show you at this point. And for those of you who haven't seen this, it's going to change your fortunes when you go to Las Vegas, because there is a concept of perfect play in blackjack, right? It's illustrated by this basic strategy chart, which you can literally buy in any casino. It's just a little piece of plastic, costs about $2. And you can keep it with you when you play blackjack. The only thing is you're consulting it mustn't delay the game. All right, the house's priority is hands per hour. So I advise you to buy this card and just learn it, all right? Because what this does is it tells you the optimum play for all the different possible situations that you can be in. So look, if we go down the left-hand side and go to 11, because that's what we had, and we look across to the dealer's up card, which was a 3, you'll see it's a yellow D, all right? That means double down. And this Blackjack Strategy card is not based on the idea that the next card is a 10, although that's a simple way of learning most of the squares. It's based on something called Monte Carlo analysis. So some mathematical geeks have sat down, right, with a computer, and they've set up all the different possible starting positions in the game of blackjack, and then they've allowed them to play out randomly 10 million, 100 million, a billion times, okay? And using that chaotic random number generator, they've managed to ascertain that there is a better and a worse play for every situation you can be in blackjack. So what I'm going to do now is quiz a few of you. You can use the chat box or the Q&A box, or you can just do it in your mind, it doesn't matter. But I'm going to give you 2 situations. I'm going to ask you to write down what you think is the correct play in each situation. Okay, folks? So here comes situation number 1. You've got 14. All right, that's your first 2 cards. You've got 14, and the dealer's got a 6. All right, hopefully you know the form by now. You can take a card, you can hit, or you can say, I'm going to stand on 14. All right, so just a couple of seconds, write down in the chat box what you would do in this situation. Would you take a card, hit, or stand? So Roy Vellet is saying that he's going to stand. Okay, anyone else? hit or stand? What would you rather do in this situation? You can do it in your mind, that's absolutely fine. So I was just doing this a couple of days ago, and we got about 50-50, actually. Got a couple of stands there. Valerie Dice, she says also stand. Okay, fantastic. I wonder whether you guys know your blackjack or whether you're just having a guess there. Maybe give me a shout and tell me. Hayato is also saying stand. Fantastic. All right, well, let's have a look at the basic blackjack strategy chart in this situation. So we had a 14 against a dealer 6. So let's go down the left-hand side, see 14 against a dealer 6. And you're absolutely right, guys. This is a red S for stands. Now, why would that be? I'm sure you know. Our 14 is bad, all right? It's not close to 21, is it? But the dealer's situation is much worse. The dealer only has a 6 showing. And if we imagine that the next card is a 10, now that's not how blackjack strategy is worked out, but it's a good shortcut way to finding it, then he's going to have 16. And that is the worst number that he can have, okay? Because as Roy Vella says, the dealer must hit 16, okay? You can actually see it written on the table there. Dealer must draw to 16, and then underneath the hand it says, and stand on all 17s, all right? So if it's a 16 and they hit, then an ace, 2, 3, 4, 5 is going to improve it for them, but a 6, a 7, an 8, a 9, a 10, a jack, a queen, and a king is all going to bust them, all right? So this is actually a great situation for us. We don't need to run the risk of taking another card because we can just allow the dealer to bust. Are they always going to bust? No, they're not always going to have 16. Sometimes they're going to have 16 and they're going to draw a 5 and make 21. But again, we come back to this magic question. What would happen if we did this 10,000, a million, a billion times? Because in a world of limited information, that's the only question that we can ask. Okay, right. So that's the first situation. Let's look at a second situation. And again, feel free to join in the chat. Now, it's quite a similar situation, this. It's quite similar. In this second situation, we've got 16 against a dealer's 7. All right, we've got 16 against a dealer's 7. Now, we're pretty far away from 21 at this point. So once again, it's as simple as this. Do you want to stand or do you want to take a card? Do you want to hit? So Roy says hit, all right? That's pretty ballsy. We've got 16, Roy. So just like before with the dealer, anything over a 5 is going to bust us. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, jack, queen, king, all going to bust us. But Roy wants to hit. Anyone else? Would you like to stand or hit? Roy says, assume we've lost already. Yeah, we're not in a great situation. I'll just leave it another 3 seconds for anyone else who wants to say hit or stand. Hayato says stand here. Okay, so in this, we've only got a small sample size there, but we're 50-50 at the moment. We're going to have one more person break the deadlock. 3, 2, 1. Okay, let's go to the blackjack strategy card. All right, what does it say? We've got 16 against the dealer's 7. So we go down the left-hand side at 16, and then we move along and we see the 7, and it is a green H for hit. And why on earth would we hit in this situation? Well, as Roy says, this is a bad situation. Okay, we're going to lose money in the long run when we play this situation out. But when you run the numbers with Monte Carlo analysis, what you see is that the best thing that you can do, the thing that's going to lose you least amount of money, is hitting, is taking a card. And the reason I've chosen this situation is because I think it illustrates something interesting that we sometimes encounter in life, which is that sometimes the best thing to do is the thing that can lose it for us. And the reason that's interesting is because we're human beings. We don't want to be responsible for losing, for failing. But sometimes we need to have the courage to do so because it's the right thing to do. In this situation, it's mathematically provable to be the right thing to do. Having courage, trusting in the system, in the strategy, which in this case is mathematically calculable because blackjack's quite a simple game, to do the right thing for the long run, even though it might precipitate a negative outcome on this occasion. And there's something else that's interesting, actually, I think, about these two situations, which is they're quite similar, right? If you don't know your blackjack, which obviously Roy does, probably knows blackjack basic strategy, you might look at these two situations and go, well, it doesn't really matter what you do in each of these situations, but it does. The edge in life can be a product of something quite small, but which takes you in completely different directions. And that's why people talk about, invest in what you know. You need to have a deep understanding of the system in which you're playing, because sometimes very small differences in our decision can have huge differences in the overall outcome. One example of that is our referendum in the UK recently, whether to leave or stay in the European Union. Now, I'm not making a political comment on that. I know what I believe, but it's irrelevant. The point is, it's a very simple yes or no decision, but the implications and consequences of it either way would be profound. Okay, so Roy says, normally we all suck at statistics and laws of large numbers. And that's absolutely true. It's absolutely true. And you know what? I don't expect anyone to come out of this hour of your lives and get a calculator out and start working everything out. Hopefully the implications of this run a little bit deeper. It's more about making decisions for the long term and knowing, do you know what? We will get things wrong, because not only are we quite bad at statistics, we also cannot know everything about any given situation. But the more that we think about the long term, the better decisions we're going to make in the moment now. In fact, I'll give you one of the tools to come out of this session now. It's a tool given to us by a lady called Susie Welsh, who's the daughter of Jack Welsh, who's the former CEO of General Electric. And it's called 10-10-10. 10-10-10. Think about a decision that you have to make, whether it's to go on holiday in the next 2 weeks or to spend the rest of your life with this person, and ask yourself how you feel after making a specific decision after 10 minutes, and 10 weeks, and 10 years. It's an interesting concept. And they can be whatever you want. They can be 10 minutes, 10 hours, 10 months, 10 minutes, 10 months, 10 years, whatever you want. But just think about it over different time frames. Because one of the interesting things that tool gives us is a sense that there is no right answer to any of those things. Like having a Big Mac or going to the gym, right? After 10 minutes, it's definitely have a Big Mac. But after 10 months, it's definitely going to go to the gym. Because actually what we find is that we want two different things. We want the lovely Thousand Island sauce, but we also want slimmer tummy, bigger muscles. And so what we actually do is a product of the time frame over which we perceive the decision. Okay, so we've talked about dopamine, we've talked about edge, we've talked about variance, we've talked about having courage, and we've talked about thinking about the long term. Let's bring all of those things now together as we enter the poker room. You might want to play live in Planet Hollywood, you might want to play online. Wherever you play, it's not going to look like this. That was a fictional setup. It was a set. We're actually shooting in Prague in this huge thing called the Barrandov Studios, amazing legacy of the communist filmmaking era. It's more likely to look like this, which is pretty tragic. But wherever you play, start to look at poker through the eyes of an economist and see it as a market, right? Every poker table is a market within which you are trying to get the competitive advantage over your opponents. In fact, every poker room, the whole world of poker is like a market within which you are making decisions, resource allocation decisions in a world of obvious, overt, and undeniable uncertainty. What does that mean? It means the information that you have available to you is limited. And I would argue that in almost everything we do, the information that we have available to us is limited. And what we're trying to do is get as much information as possible, particularly the right kinds of information. We're trying to use it as intelligently as possible, and we're trying to give away as little information as possible. We have a phrase for that, don't we, in poker? Everybody knows it. It's called the poker face. It means to give away as little information as possible. These days, we don't worry too much about the poker face, to be honest with you, because we've got the caps and the shades there. You can see them. They're legal in most poker rooms. That's going too far. All right, folks, we want to see a nice fair game, but hopefully you get the point. When we're playing poker, we are comfortable with limited information. So what's the aim of poker? Well, essentially, the aim of poker is to win, and therefore the aim of poker is to have the best hand for the showdown, according to this, the universally recognized hand rankings of poker. They go up like this: high card, 1 pair, 2 pairs, 3 of a kind; straight, 5 cards in running order, not 4, not 3; flush, 5 cards of the same suit, not 4, not 3; full house, that's 3 of a kind plus a pair, means your 5 cards is full. And then we get to hands which you don't need to worry about, because 4 of a kind is 2,000 to 1, straight flush 63,000 to 1, royal flush 643,000 to 1. Forget about it. Okay. But bear in mind, you can't control what cards get dealt to you. Someone upstairs decides that, not in the camera room. I mean, you know, God. So therefore, all you can do is play the hand that you're dealt, to coin the old phrase of the song. And that means maximize your winnings when you're in a good situation, as we did when we were playing blackjack, and minimizing your losses when you're in a bad situation. Let's at this point go into a poker room. And I've got a poker lobby set up here. I'm playing on a site here called Replay Poker. It's really good. It's a really useful site, actually. I'll tell you why, because it allows you to play online poker, but without betting any real money. Okay, you buy your chips. You can get some for free, but you know the old model. They're going to give you more chips if you're happy to shell out and buy some. And you're playing with other players who are dead serious, so they're not messing around, even though it's not real money. And you can have a fairly decent game. So I'm going to talk this through for people who've never played before. What you see here is that we all get 2 cards face down that are secret and private, personal to us. You can see mine at the bottom there. I'm a player called Always the Ace King. And they've all decided to bet 50 on this hand. Now, for various reasons I won't bore you with, I had to put 50 in, okay? So to stay in a hand of poker, here's the golden rule. You must equal the bet of the highest better, okay? And because I was already the highest better, I don't need to put any more money in. So let's just check, which is a fancy word for not betting anything more, and see what the flop brings. Now, the flop is the 3 cards in the middle of the table, okay? And we're putting our 2 cards now with the 3 cards in the middle of the table. And we've intersected with the flop on this occasion. We've got a pair of aces, but I'm not going to bet that, all right? So I'm just going to check. I'm going to be like a tiger in the long grass. I'm not going to give away that I've got an ace on this particular occasion. Now, there are lots of times when I wouldn't do that. In fact, one of the biggest mistakes that amateurs can make is not betting big. But I'll tell you why I'm not particularly confident at this point in time. And that is that my side card is not very big. Can you see? I've only got a 3. So if any of them have got an ace with something bigger than a 3, they'll be winning at this point. So I don't like my situation at the moment. In fact, it's one of the worst situations in poker when you've got a pair of aces on the flop, but it's not with a great kicker because you got in cheaply. These 2 are betting out and calling. They don't seem to have much hesitancy. He's betting 600 now. Jardito may call that. I think that one of them has also got an ace. Okay, so I'm going to fold my hand in this situation. I don't like to do this, but I think that one of them has got me beaten here, and putting more money into this product is probably pointless. So I'm going to fold. Let's see how this hand plays out. Oh, he's checking now, the last card, but he might do that with an ace as well. Jardito is also checking, and he didn't have an ace, but look at that. He had 2 pairs. He had an 8 and a jack, so he would have beaten us. All right, so we did the right thing by folding. And that's an interesting situation there, because I didn't get my assessment right that they had a bigger ace, but I did get my assessment right that their bet meant that they were better than I was, okay? And that's what we're trying to do in poker, is not put people on an actual hand, but put them on a basket or range of hands. Now, I'm going to stop talking now because I've got a pair of jacks here, which is a great starting hand, and I'm going to raise it up, all right? I've been the aggressor now. I've raised it up to 350. Rockstar's got to make a decision whether he calls that. Players here will be a little bit looser, a little more inclined to gamble than on a proper professional site, simply because it's not real money. But again, they're playing quite well. They want to prove themselves as poker players here, so they're not going to be stupid about it. All right, we've got an interesting situation. We've got a queen out there on the board, because if anyone's got a queen now, they've got a pair of queens, but I mustn't be scared about that. I'm going to be really confident. I'm going to be the aggressor. I'm going to bet out 1,200. I'm going to not be upset to win it here and now, but I'll be interested to see what Jardito does. He's folded, and so I've taken it down of 1. And I'm happy about that. Jacks is a really good hand, but when you've got a queen or a king or an ace on the flop, you're vulnerable. Let's play one more hand, because we've actually got some quite good cards, and we've got time. We'll be finished on the hour. We've got a queen and a king of the same suit. But crucially, where are we? Look just to the left of the queen. There's a little white button with a red D, and that is the dealer button, and that says that we're in late position. And position is absolutely everything in poker. This position means we're in a powerful situation, and so again, it's correct to raise it up, to exploit that position. Some people say, don't they, when they talk about poker, they say play the man, not the cards. If someone says that to you, trust me, they don't know what they're talking about when it comes to poker. The cards are really important, because if we go to the last card and we all turn our cards over. That's what we've got. We've only got the cards, all right? So we don't play the man, not the cards, but we play the situation. We play the cards, we play the players, we play the perception that they have of us, we play the position. And here's an interesting situation. We've flopped not a king, not a queen, but we do have 4 spades, and we do have 4 cards to a straight. I'm using a bit of technical jargon now. It's an inside straight. So it could be better, but it could be a lot worse. Now, in a professional game, I might think long and hard about this, but for a bit of fun, let's call that and see what the next card brings. And we hit out straight, look at that. So we've got 10, jack, queen, king, ace. I think we have got the nuts, the best possible hand at this point in time. So we're going to do the most exciting thing that you can do in the whole of poker, which is go all in. This is all happening live. We could still lose this hand because that guy might have an ace of spades and make his flush. We've got a call from Rockstar. We've got a call from Smoke. The last card comes the 3 of hearts. I am not worried about anything at this point in time. Great hand to just see off the bat, and there we go. We won 20,645. It's as easy as that. It's not. That's not going to happen every time. Let's leave the live game and give you all a little bit of a poker quiz, right? Let's see how much time we've got. We're going to go through 3 hands here really quickly, and this is hand number 1. All right, hand number 1. I'm expecting big things from you, Roy. You know what you're talking about. So here's a starting situation. All right, we've got that same poker site. We've got 9 players sitting at the table. We're in middle position now. Can you see the white dealer button with the red D? We're not in late position now. And we've got 9, 5 of clubs. Okay, so what would you do in this situation, folks? Do you fold your 9, 5 of clubs? Would you call, equal the bet of the highest better? That's 100 in this case. Or would you raise it up, right? Fold, call, or raise. Roy says call. Okay, anybody else? Anyone to fold? Anyone disagreeing? Fold, call, or raise with the 9, 5 of clubs. Okay, you've all made your decision mentally. Now, before I say what I would do, let me say this first of all. Poker is a game of conversations, right? The way to be good at poker is just like being a good airline pilot. You should drill all the different situations so that when you're in an emergency, you're not going to panic because you've already thought about this situation. It's second nature to you. It's exactly the same in poker, okay? You should talk to your mentor. You should talk to your poker buddy so that when you're in a situation, you've talked it through. And also, depending on your poker style, any one of those 3 plays is possible, all right? It's plausible. But I'm going to say what I would do, and I think what 80% of players would do in that situation, and that is fold. It's a bit of a borderline thing. If we were on the button, if we were in late position, we might call, might even raise. But if we play hands like that all the time, what if I did this 10,000 times? We would lose money in the long run. Not always, not in every game, but on average. And so we're going to fold. And something interesting happened on this particular occasion, which is that 2 5s came on the board, right? If we'd played that 9-5, we would have made 3 5s, and I can tell you now the winner had an ace, we would have won the hand. But as poker players, we don't think about that, all right? We don't worry about that. We don't worry about what would have happened. We worry about, did we make the right decision at the time based on the information available to us? Because that's what decision-making science says. It says you can't predict an unknowable future. You can only base it on the information that you have, which might involve probabilistic assessments of the future. But 9-5 in the long run is going to lose. And in answer to Roy, who says, are the 2 clubs relevant? They are kind of irrelevant. I'll tell you why. You're only going to make your flush 4% of the time. And when you make a flush, it's only going to be a 9 high flush, Roy. So what does that mean? You can actually get sucked in to that flush and get beaten by a bigger flush. And even then, you're going to make it 4% of the time. So I'm comfortable with that fold, but poker's a game of opinions. All right, let's go to situation number 2. And on this occasion, we've got 10 jack, okay? Now, what else is different? Okay, so the bet's 150. We've got quite a few callers there. We're in late position, all right? We're next to the dealer button. There's only one person after us to speak. So you know the drill by now, folks. It's fold or call or raise. What would you do in this situation? Fold for free, live to fight another day. The money's still yours. Call 150, see what the next 3 cards bring, or raise it up. Roy says call, okay. Anybody else? Any thoughts at all? Some of you will want to fold. Some of you will want to raise. And once again, poker's a game of opinions. You can make a good argument for all three. I've chosen this situation because this illustrates how poker has changed in the last 15 years. And it's changed for all sorts of reasons. It's changed because A, it's going to change in reaction to what other players do. So over the years, players start doing different things, and therefore it becomes correct to do different things yourself. Just like in football, for example, it moved from being a game of attack to a game of defense, because Italy, showed us all how to defend, and the Brazilian style faded away. And then it became a game of counter-attack. That became the dominant paradigm in football. But it's also changed because trillions of hands have now been played online. And so we have all of this data to show how poker, different poker styles win or lose money in the long run. And what's become really clear from all of that data is that it's the aggressive player that wins out. It's become a game of position, and it's become a game of aggression. So if you're in late position with a reasonably good hand, which is what this is, it's not a great hand, you should raise, all right? Would you have done that 10, 15 years ago? No, you'd have called, which is exactly what Roy said. But G has said there, raise, and he's absolutely right. Because raising or betting gives you two ways to win, right? Number one, they can call and you have better cards. Or number two, they don't call. And particularly in this situation, when lots of players have already put 150 into the pot, if I can whittle this down to me and one other player, which is actually what happened in this situation, all of those 150s that have been put into the pot is dead money. It's money that's been invested that can no longer yield a return. As it happened on this particular occasion, I got a dream flop. Queen, King, Ace gave me 10, Jack, Queen, King, Ace, 5 cards in running order, and ended up making a lot of money because he didn't put me on 10, Jack. That's the other benefit of it. It's not a hand that people put you on when you make that raise in late position, but raising it up, even re-raising it up in late position, being the aggressor, having courage, following our long-term strategy, even though sometimes it can put us in a vulnerable situation. Again, it's the right play. Right, last hand before I draw all this together and answer the question, why did I leave Las Vegas and stop playing poker? And on this occasion, we're on the last betting round. Okay, so we've got a pair of queens, which is a great starting hand. It's the third best starting hand. Pair of aces, pair of kings, pair of queens, ace, king suited, lots of high cards there, but pair of queens, great hand. And the board is a 2 and a 9 and a king and a 9 and a 10, all right? And we have bet out 200, which maybe wasn't the best bet in the world. It's something of a feeler bet. It's sort of going, all right, I'm quite good here, but what do you think? And the guy on the top left there has raised it up to 900. So for the last time today, what would you do in this situation? Would you fold for free, keep your money, live to fight another day? Would you call for another 700, or would you raise it up the last time? Fold or call or raise? 1 second, just there we are, fold, call or raise. Okay, cool. And what do we have? Roy says raise. Okay. G says call. Okay. Anybody else? Fold, call or raise. Okay. I know I sound boring. I sound like a trainer tonight when I said there's no right or wrong answers. There usually are. But in poker, it's always a game of opinions and ultimately decisions. And sadly, the correct thing to do in this situation is really to fold. Now, why is that? Well, there are so many things that can beat us out there, all right? If this guy has a king, he's beating us. If this guy has a 9, he's got 3 9s. He's beating us into a cocked hat. If this guy has 2 spades, which is not the most likely hand, all right, but he's got a flush, he's beating us. And then there's all the other combinations like a 10 and a 2, or a king and a 2, or all the different other things that he can have that is beating us. And the biggest tell that we have that he thinks he's beating us is his raise. Could he be bluffing? Yes, absolutely. But what we do in poker is either here or here or here, or in a spreadsheet, a calculation that says $700 is what I've got to put in to win. What is the likelihood of me winning that hand that breaks even? And do I think I'm above or below that likelihood? And in this situation, I think I'm below it. I think whilst I could win in this situation, in the long run, it's a negative expectation proposition. And the correct thing to do, as depressing as that is to fold. Now, on this occasion, I called only because I wanted to see what hand he had to be able to show you. and he does have a king. That doesn't illustrate it. That doesn't mean that I'm right to fold, all right? But it means that that's the kind of hand that people do raise with in that situation. Folding is so important that if you take two poker players who are roughly equal, right? They've read the same number of books, they've been playing for the same number of years, but this person makes more money than this person, I almost guarantee you that the difference in their games will be that this person folds more often. They understand a really fundamental concept of poker, which is that the money in the pot is no longer yours. It's no point fighting for it or struggling for it or trying to push it through with brute strength. Poker is as much about Zen acceptance as it is about reading people's body language and running a wonderful bluff. And when we're folding, what we're actually doing is allowing ourselves to reinvest this money that we're saving in other higher yield opportunities. In fact, the definition of an entrepreneur, as coined by the French economist J.B. Say, is one who reallocates resources from areas of lower to areas of higher return. And in poker, we do that by folding. All of which brings me back to my first two questions. Why did I do all this in the first place? And why did I stop? And the reason that I stopped was twofold. It was partly because sitting there, facing that board with my pair of kings, I knew deep down that I should have folded. And I didn't. And a great player would have. Again, even though we think that poker is all about the exciting plays, it's just as much about the defensive folds. But it ran deeper than that. Because what I actually realized in that moment was that I needed to fold the hand of poker itself. It had been brilliant. It has given me everything that I have gone on to do. I'm talking to you now because of it. But if I'd carried on playing poker, I wouldn't be doing this. And this is the privilege of my life. I wouldn't have had my own poker TV show. I wouldn't have been the poker advisor on Casino Royale. I wouldn't have met the love of my life. I wouldn't have been a speaker around the world working with these great companies and now speaking to yourselves. So anything new to start, something old must stop. An entrepreneur is one who reallocates resources from areas of lower to areas of higher return. And sometimes to do that, we need to fold our hand. Thank you very much indeed, folks. I hope that's been interesting, and using the casino as a metaphor for all the decisions that you make in your life. My name is Caspar Berry. Those are my details on screen. If you want to get in touch with me for any reason, or check me out on LinkedIn, it's always a pleasure for me to follow up with people. But for now, I wish you well and good luck with all the decisions that you make in your life. Thank you very much indeed for listening.